There doesn't exist a human being in this world that doesn't have problems, big problems, major problems. And from the Megillat Esther, we learn how to handle our problems, what to do in the times of crisis. This is talking about as individuals, as well as on a communal and a global level. So let's read the story of the Megillah. The Jews faced an existential crisis, a crisis that hasn't happened since then and never happened before. Every single man, woman, and child in the world was threatened with extinction. Haman had a plan to murder all the Jews. This is something even Hitler couldn't think of. He couldn't. America wasn't under his control, and nor other parts of the world. Australia, for example. The whole Europe wasn't conquered yet. So he couldn't kill all the Jews in one day because he didn't have a plan for it, but also he didn't control the Jews. Haman and Achashverosh ruled over every single Jew in the world. So when Mordechai finds out about this plan from overhearing the conversation, he immediately sends a message to Esther. And he says, Esther, you are the queen. You are in a position to save the Jews. Go save the Jews. And the first thing she actually says, she says, I can't. It's too difficult. My husband is crazy. He's cooked in the head. He only allows people to visit him when he is the one who initiates. But if you come to his home unannounced, he'll kill you, even though I'm his wife. So Mordechai tells her powerful line. He says to her, every single one of us has a mission to fulfill in this world. And he tells her even the musical note, Ki macharesh tachrishi, because if you are silent at this moment, salvation will come from somewhere else. God will find a way to resolve our problem. We are giving you the honor, the privilege of being able to help us. But if you don't want, that's okay. God will find another agent. By the way, whenever it comes any good deed that you need to accomplish, if you don't want to do it, somebody else will do it. God will find another agent. But the mitzvah will be done. You will lose out. So he convinces Esther. And Esther says, fine, I'm going to help the Jews. What is the first thing she does? The first thing she does in the Megillah is she says, Lech, go and gather all the Jews and declare a fast day for 3 days fast. And I will also fast, she says. The first thing she does is she prays to God. In other words, even though she needs to appear in front of the king and she needs to look nice and with the makeup, fasting doesn't exactly make her look gorgeous. But she knows salvation comes from God. The only person who can truly save us is God. Everything is up to God. We think we know how to resolve things, but we don't. It's God we need to turn to. God is 100% fixing our problems. Yes, he wants us to make a channel here below, and he wants us to, when we face with a problem, to call a doctor. If it's a health problem, if it's a legal problem, call a lawyer, and try to get the best doctor, try to get the best lawyer. But this is not what's going to resolve our crisis. What's going to resolve the problem is God. So the first thing she says is, go gather the Jews. And guess what? It was the only time in history that all the Jews gathered together. Every single Jew gathered together. Mordechai was able to gather thousands of the young children, and he taught them Torah. So the Jews who until then had sinned, had rebelled against God, they had turned to idols, they had turned to doing, the non-observant things. The Jewish soul is like very elastic. They went to one side, and now Esther got them. They all together gathered together to serve God. For 1 year straight, there was sacrifice. Even though they could have abandoned their faith, they didn't. And this is what brought about salvation. You see, the problem why the Jews were threatened in the first place was because they had abandoned God. And therefore Esther knew, in order to fix the problem, she has to bring them back to God. That's exactly what she did. And the lesson for us is tremendous. There doesn't exist a human being that doesn't have problems. We all have problems. But what do we do when we have those problems? First thing we need to know is turn to God. If you want to find a spouse, you are lonely. If your problem is you're lonely, pray to God. That's the first thing you do. And then you go to a shadchan, to a matchmaker, or you go to these dating apps, and you do whatever you need to do to find your spouse. But the first thing is you turn to God. If you are in need of a business, of a job, money's tight, the first thing you do, you pray to God. Then you go to LinkedIn, update your resume, send it out. Make that channel for God's blessings to flow. But this is the lesson of the Megillah. This is why it's so important. And this is why the Torah says, if you read the Megillah and think that there's no message today, you don't fulfill your obligation. This is what it's all about.